Hello, this is Dr. Uzo, the Water Guy, and this is broadcast number 2. This broadcast deals with the natural and man-made processes involved in bringing water to your home. These processes will be discussed in simple and broad terms and will not involve any significant scientific or technical details. And it's entitled From the Sky to Your Tap. And speaking of the sky, the natural processes begin with the sun, which generates the energy that not only sustains planet Earth, but also drives a phenomenon we refer to as hydrologic cycle or water cycle. And this cycle involves a number of complex natural phenomena with a basis in physics and biochemistry, which we're not going to delve into in this broadcast. But in a nutshell, it involves the generation of water vapor from the surface of the earth due to the heat of the sun, and then the rise of that vapor into the atmosphere, which then coalesces, condenses until the weight or density of water in the cloud formed is then given up, is such that it cannot be supported by the atmospheric pressure, that it then falls back to earth in the form of precipitation that replenishes the streams, rivers, lakes, and reservoirs, and of course the massive global oceans. The main sources of these vapors are the open ocean and the open lakes and rivers and streams through the process of evaporation. And then the vegetated portions of the landmass of the earth, which generate water vapors through the leaves of the plants, shrubs, trees, through a process called transpiration. Both processes combined, referred to as evapotranspiration, account for most of the vapor that goes up in the skies and forms rain clouds. The third source, of course, is direct evaporation from ice packs and snow packs in the mountains through a phenomenon known as sublimation. But not to forget that there are 7.5 billion people on Earth, and in a small measure, they contribute to the water cycle through the breathing process. When we breathe, yes, indeed, we do exhale some amount of water vapor. So it's interesting to note that we humans are part of the water cycle. And I'd like to also point out that the water vapor generated in an area, a region, that forms a cloud in the skies may not always receive precipitation from that cloud, because that cloud could be transported by continental or intercontinental winds and jet streams to other parts of the world where, with the right amount of temperature and pressure condition, will result in precipitation. I'll always point out that fact about humans being part of the water cycle, because every time I give a presentation on this subject matter, I remind everybody that we are part of this nature, part and parcel of this nature, and that our water vapor from our bodies part of the clouds, and that those clouds may be transported to other parts of the world where it would come down as precipitation. Isn't that interesting? We're so interconnected. we're in this world together. So anyhow, the cloud that forms from this water vapor, from these various sources, condenses and comes back down as precipitation that replenishes our streams, rivers, lakes, reservoirs, aquifers, and the massive oceans of the world. And so when you look up in the sky and see those beautiful creation of nature, you should also think about it as something being put in storage, a valuable resource that will sometime will shower upon us and replenish our water resources. And when you look at it like I do, don't just behold the beauty of it, but consider it as something that has in storage a valuable resource, water, that sooner or later will shower down upon us and bless our globe and replenish our water resources. And these clouds come in different forms and shapes, with the same physical nature, water content, that sooner or later will come down and replenish our earth. Even a dark and ominous looking cloud like this has the same thing in it, the same resource in it. And even though this may result in heavy downpour that may cause some problems, yet it is delivering something that we need so desperately. And that manner of delivery may even be violent, like a hurricane, a typhoon, a cyclone, a tornado. But we should learn to recognize these violent weather events as nature's way of trying to strike a balance and trying to reach a state of equilibrium. And so all we need to do is take care of ourselves and learn to live with those violent events. They are temporary in nature, and we should appreciate what nature is doing to try to balance the various catastrophic atmospheric forces in play in these violent events. All we have to do is be sure to forecast those events well and plan properly for them ahead of time. Be safe, get the citizens out of the way, and make every effort to capture as much of that water as possible for our use, and put all that water in productive use, including supplying them to homes. And so for anybody watching this broadcast, I urge you to maybe adopt a new attitude to that inconvenient snowstorm that made it difficult for you to commute to work or drive, or that heavy downpour that interrupts your daily activities. Even a catastrophic event like a flooding event like this. These are transient, temporary conditions that, like I said earlier on, can be planned for with the right forecasting methods and the engineering and town planning that will keep things out of the way and enable us to receive the blessings of nature. Because ultimately, these transient conditions will go away, and then a state of equilibrium will finally be arrived at, a state of balance, the calm after the storm, when all the precipitation have drained into stream channels and start to flow down the channels in a more peaceful condition, and maybe even a cliff like this, a cliff face like this, to create this type of wonder of nature, beauty of nature. Or a serene flow down a rustic canyon like this. As the water flows on its way to a reservoir where it will be captured and supplied to you, or to the ocean to nourish the ocean, or even seep into the ground to replenish our aquifers, and even come through your neighborhoods, your neck of the woods. And this type of serene and tranquil flow through the woods, where you can even go and catch a fish or two, or sail, or can do a solitary, peaceful canoeing down the tranquil stream. And the stream flows on and may even end up being captured in a marvelous engineering structure like this, where man's man-made process begins, actually. And indeed, that's the stage at which man-made processes come into the picture, where hydrologists, water resources engineers, civil engineers, structural engineers, geotechnical engineers plan, design, and oversee the construction of an amazing structure like this, a dam and a reservoir that will hold the water coming down the rivers and streams for supply to your home. And let's not forget the portion of the precipitation that infiltrated into the ground to replenish the aquifers. There's geologists, hydrogeologists, engineers design wells and pumping systems to extract that water and pump it up to add to our supply reservoir. Well, the mention of extracting groundwater calls, of course, our attention to a very important aspect of water resources infrastructure, which is water wells. In a lot of regions of the world, groundwater is a primary source of water supply. And for that reason, in future broadcasts, I would devote one or two broadcasts to the subject of water wells. And in fact, at this juncture, I'll just mention that there are three basic ways to install a well. The dug well, which is using just pick and shovel to excavate, hack out and excavate down to below the groundwater table, with the hope that the groundwater table is close enough, within 38 feet or less. And another system is driven well, in which a bit and a screen attached to the end of a pipe string is driven into the ground below the groundwater table, and then water will run into the well through the screen here, and it's pumped out. And then, of course, drilling, which the drilling rig comes in different sizes, but it's a technology for drilling deeper than 1,000 feet in cases where massive production of groundwater is required. So from this point on, we're going to talk a little bit more about the man-made processes and the supply chain and the supply train of water. We have talked about the natural processes and some man-made processes involved in getting the water into a supply reservoir or a pool or even an aquifer. Now, the moment precipitation hits the surface of the earth, that water is immediately susceptible to pollution, contamination. So regardless of what part of the world you are located, your water typically requires some level of purification or treatment. And so the next phase in bringing water to your home is pumping all that water to a treatment plant. And that treatment plant, the nature of it is determined from sampling the water and testing, performing general chemistry tests on the water sample, and determining what chemical constituents and pollutants are in the water, and then use that information to select an appropriate treatment or purification technique. Now, the subject of treatment and purification of water supply is very important, and your water supply agencies take it very, very seriously. And the governments have enacted laws that ensure that these safe levels of chemicals are maintained at all time, and that water supplied to our communities are clean enough and safe enough to drink. So for that reason, I'm just going to mention just a few common methods of purification of water. Like I said, it doesn't always apply to all water supplies. It just depends on the water chemistry of your water source. And I will start with filtration, which is commonly used in many supply chains, and involves a process of passing the water through selected media to remove suspended solids and maybe sometimes the coloration in the water. And then softening, where in regions where the water is considered to be hard or hard water, which leads to the water not producing sufficient foam or lather when you use it to wash dishes or clothes. Such hard water are treated with chemicals that remove the salts that cause hardness in water supply. And I'm just going to leave it at that. The other method is chlorination, which is basically disinfecting the water to kill bacteria and other pathogens that may be in the water, to make them safer. And occasionally, in some regions where the water chemistry still has the potential to cause dental problems, then this method of fluoridation is put in place, and basically involves the addition or fortification of the water supply by adding fluoride to it. And that deals with the problem associated with dental problems in drinking water. So then, with appropriate and sufficient treatment given to the water supply, then the treated water is pumped up and stored in an above ground storage or reservoir, from where it can be supplied through gravity flow to the subdivision and to your home. And that usually involves the construction of a massive tank like this, placed on the highest elevation in the community. And I'm sure you would have seen one of these structures while driving through your community. And where not possible to build it on a high ground like this, it is suspended on a steel structure like this to give it elevation. Again, this is like one of those banks for at least a reliable water supply for a period of time. Different agencies will have different sizes depending on how the period of reliability they want to build into their system. In a lot of places, it's like a 2-week supply. Other areas may have a tank that can supply a community for up to 1 month. But the idea of placing the reservoir or tank at a high elevation, high above the community where the water is supplied, is to create what is called a head. That is, a head is elevation high enough such that the weight of the water at that elevation enables the water to flow through this pipe network and overcome the friction involved in flow through those pipes and still have sufficient pressure to go through the plumbing in the homes and flow at the right flow rate. So here's another way to look at it. That's this head, which is the difference in elevation of the tank location and the location of the tap in your home. So this difference in elevation gets that water to your home by gravity flow. And it shows that it flows at the right pressure and the right flow rate. Even in a high rise, those things are taken into consideration in the design of the size and elevation of this tank. It's only on rare occasions that at this location, if the pressure is not sufficient enough to push the water to the top floors and make them flow at the right pressure and rate, then there will be a need for an auxiliary pump at that building location to ensure that the supply possesses enough pressure to get up to the top level. But let's not forget that another significant component of the water supply infrastructure is that pipe from the reservoir to the community where the homes are located. And that part of it involves significant cost and effort to excavate and lay down the pipes, sloping it down to the communities where the supplies are needed. And if you go to a water agency that supplies your water, they have what's called the Atlas map, which shows a map of the communities they supply and the lots within the subdivision. Every single lot has its own independent service line. And so the pipe comes from the reservoir and it's laid down in every street, basically. Not all the time. And then such that there is ease of connection of a service line from the line to the lots or to the homes. So this map here shows, like in green here, some in red and in blue, the alignment or the configuration of the water supply lines that run through the streets within the subdivision. And then this nice graphic from one of the local water supply agencies in California, the Irvine Ranch Water District, shows that main line in the street in blue here, water main. And the connection from that main line to the house or the residence or office building or school building. And that blue line right there is the connecting line, and it's called the service line. And at the end of the service line, that line terminates at the property line in red here, red dashes. And at the end of it is the meter, which measures the amount of water used in this house or building. And beyond the meter is a private line that is the responsibility of the property owner, or the homeowner, or the building owner. So the agency has a line coming down your street, buried below surface, with a line to your property, ending in a box that contains the meter that totalizes the total water use within the home or property or building. So then your responsibility is to install this, or the responsibility of your building contractor or whoever sold you the house, the developer that sold you the house, installed this private service line and all the plumbing within the building that goes to the different points of use. So what you see is, for example, here's that private line from the meter installed with these connections by the plumber, the developer's plumber, or the homeowner's plumber, and goes to the different points of use: the laundry room, the sinks in the toilet, bathtub, any drinking fountain, and the kitchen area, and even in some cases to the lawn areas. So let's go back out in the street one more time. If you look in the street, sometimes you see a circular plate like this with the label water on it. That shows the location of this structure here, which is a valve box. If you pop it open, you see a valve, like for example here. Here's the line from the main in the street. And that valve box is over this control valve, which the water supply agency can use to shut off your line. Then, well, this distance is usually more than this. It's more than 10 feet, 15 feet or more, because this line takes it to the property line, and that's where the meter is located. And after the meter is the private line that goes to the homes. And if you go back to the street again, this is the meter box. It's located, again, at the location of the meter, which is at the property line. I guarantee you, if you go out in the street, you will see this structure. And if you pop it open, you will see the meter inside of it. Beyond the meter, again, is the private service line that leads to this wonderful picture here. And that brings me to the point where I tend to say that it is such a blessing to have something like this. Access to safe, clean drinking water is invaluable. Safe, clean drinking water is so crucial to our well-being. Water sustains our health. And I encourage you, the viewer, to take advantage of this blessing and the fact that it's also good for you to drink it up. So many people around the world don't have that luxury. Take advantage of it while you have it. It's good for your health. This is Dr. Uzo, the water guy, saying, drink water for your health and conserve water for your future. I thank you so very much for viewing this broadcast. I hope to see you in future broadcasts. Thanks again.